Part 7. The resistance was growing stronger, but so was the desperation of the Krylos. Humanity's relentless defiance had forced the aliens to rethink their approach. They began launching attacks with a ferocity that left entire regions in ruins. Cities were flattened, forests burned to ash, and rivers turned to steam under the heat of their weapons. Yet, despite the destruction, humans refused to yield. Every setback only fueled their determination. In Willow Creek, Jack, Lily, Sam, Maria, and Dr. Ross prepared for what they knew would be the final push. The sphere still sat in Jack's field, glowing faintly beneath the stars. It remained a mystery, a symbol of both danger and opportunity. Dr. Ross had uncovered enough about its functions to understand that it was critical to the Krylos's operations. If humanity could disable it, or even turn it against them, they might gain the upper hand. "We can't wait any longer," Dr. Ross said during one of their late-night meetings. "If we destroy the sphere now, it might cripple their ability to coordinate. But we need to time it perfectly." Colonel Hayes nodded, his expression grim. "Then let's do it, whatever the cost." Sam raised a hand, urging caution. "We need a plan first. Rushing in blind will get us killed." They spent hours poring over maps and discussing tactics. Finally, they settled on a strategy. A massive assault designed to draw the Krylos's attention away from the sphere, while a small team worked to disable it. The operation would require precision, timing, and sacrifice. But if it succeeded, it could end the war. The next morning, word spread quickly through the resistance network. Fighters from across the region converged on Willow Creek, ready to take part in the most ambitious mission yet. Farmers, teachers, mechanics, and doctors joined forces, each bringing their unique skills to the effort. Children helped gather supplies, while elders offered prayers and blessings. Everyone played, a role no matter how small. Lily stood beside her father, watching as people streamed into the barn. Her heart raced with excitement and fear. "Do you think this will work, Dad?" she asked quietly. Jack knelt down to meet her gaze. "I don't know, Lil, but I do know one thing. We're fighting for something bigger than ourselves, and that's worth everything." As night fell, the resistance moved into position. Teams split off, heading toward designated targets meant to distract the Krylos. Fires were lit, mirrors angled to reflect sunlight, and loud noises created to mimic human activity. Meanwhile, Jack, Lily, Dr. Ross, Sam, and Maria formed the core team tasked with disabling the sphere. The journey to the crash site felt surreal. The air was thick with tension, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to vibrate with anticipation. As they approached the sphere, its glow pulsed brighter, almost as if it sensed their presence. Dr. Ross pulled out a set of crude tools she'd fashioned from scrap metal and wire. "Stay close," she whispered. "This won't take long, but we'll need to move fast." Jack and Sam kept watch, scanning the horizon for signs of the Krylos. Lily stayed by Dr. Ross's side, handing her tools and steadying her hands when they trembled. Maria crouched nearby, ready to provide medical aid if needed. Dr. Ross worked quickly, her fingers moving with practiced precision. She identified a series of nodes on the sphere's surface, points where energy flowed most intensely. Using a makeshift drill, she carefully punctured one of the nodes, causing the sphere to emit a low hum. "That's it," she muttered. "Just a little more." Suddenly, the ground shook violently. A deafening roar filled the air as a massive Krylos ship descended from the sky, its surface shimmering like liquid metal. The aliens had realized what was happening, and they weren't going to let humanity succeed. "Hurry," Jack shouted, raising his weapon. He and Sam fired rocks and sharpened sticks at the approaching drones, buying Dr. Ross precious seconds. Maria tended to a fighter who had been injured in the initial attack, her hands steady despite the chaos. Lily watched in awe as her father fought alongside Sam, their movements fluid and coordinated. She wanted to help, but she knew her job was to assist Dr. Ross. "Almost done," the scientist called out, her voice strained. With one final adjustment, the sphere let out a blinding flash of light. For a moment, Everything went silent. Then, slowly the Krylos ship began to falter. Its engines sputtered and its weapons dimmed. The once mighty vessel hovered uncertainly before retreating into the sky, leaving behind a trail of smoke. Cheers erupted among the resistance fighters. They had done it. They had crippled the Krylos command center. But their celebration was short-lived. The aliens weren't defeated yet. Over the next few days, the Krylos launched a series of desperate counterattacks. Their ships bombarded cities with reckless abandon, attempting to regain control. But humanity's unity had reached new heights. Resistance groups around the world coordinated their efforts, launching simultaneous assaults that stretched the aliens thin. Each battle drained the Krylos' resources further, pushing them closer to collapse. In Chicago, survivors used underground tunnels to ambush alien patrols. In Los Angeles, engineers rigged up traps that ensnared drones and grounded them. In Denver, civilians fortified the ruins, turning the city into an impenetrable fortress. Everywhere, ordinary people found extraordinary ways to adapt and survive. Back in Willow Creek, the group regrouped to assess the situation. Though the sphere had been disabled, the Krylos still posed a significant threat. Dr. Ross warned that the aliens might attempt one last devastating strike. "They're cornered," she explained, "and cornered animals are the most dangerous." Colonel Hayes clenched his fists. "Then we finish this, once and for all." The final confrontation came sooner than expected. A massive Krylos fleet descended upon Earth, targeting its core with a weapon capable of causing catastrophic earthquakes. The aliens intended to destroy the planet itself, rather than allow humanity to win. But humanity wasn't ready to give up. Resistance fighters combined ancient mining techniques with modern engineering to disrupt the attack. Tunnels were dug deep into the Earth, diverting energy away from the weapon's target. Explosives rigged from scavenged materials were detonated at key points, destabilizing the Krylos' machinery. And when all else failed, brave souls sacrificed themselves to ensure the mission's success. As dawn broke over a battered but resilient world, the Krylos admitted defeat. Their ships withdrew, disappearing into the horizon as suddenly as they had arrived. Humanity stood victorious, not because of superior technology or overwhelming force, but because of its unbreakable spirit. Jack looked around at the faces of those who had fought alongside him. Tears welled in his eyes as he realized the magnitude of what they had achieved. "We did it," he whispered. "Together." Lily smiled, her young face radiant with pride. "Because we're not built to break, Dad. Not ever." And as the sun rose higher in the sky, casting light over a scarred but hopeful planet, humanity took its first steps toward rebuilding. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the first time in months there was peace and the promise of a brighter future. Part 8. The Krylos were gone. Their ships had vanished into the sky, leaving behind a planet scarred but alive. The silence that followed their departure was almost deafening. For weeks, humanity had been fighting for survival, dodging destruction, and clinging to hope. Now with the threat lifted, people stood still, unsure of what to do next. It felt strange, almost unnatural to breathe without fear. In Willow Creek, Jack Monroe sat on the steps of his farmhouse, staring at the horizon. The field where the sphere had crashed was empty now, its glow extinguished after Dr. Ross's final adjustments. The artifact that had brought the Krylos to Earth was silent, harmless, a relic of a war that had changed everything. Beside him, Lily leaned against his shoulder, her eyes closed as if soaking in the quiet. "Do you think they'll come back?" Lily asked softly. Jack hesitated before answering. "I don't know, Lil. But if they do, we'll be ready." It wasn't just an answer. It was a promise. Humanity had proven something during the conflict, not just to the Krylos, but to itself. People weren't perfect. They made mistakes, argued, and sometimes hurt each other. But when faced with impossible odds, they came together. They adapted, fought, and endured. And that resilience, the refusal to give up, was humanity's greatest strength. Across the world, Survivors began to pick up the pieces. Cities lay in ruins, their skylines broken and streets littered with debris. But beneath the rubble, life stirred. Farmers returned to their fields, planting seeds in soil churned by alien weapons. Teachers reopened schools and makeshift classrooms, determined to give children a future despite the scars of the past. Engineers worked tirelessly to rebuild infrastructure, using whatever materials they could salvage. Humanity didn't have advanced technology anymore, but it didn't need it. Ingenuity and hard work carried them forward. Dr. Emily Ross spent her days studying the remnants of Krylos technology, hoping to unlock its secrets. She believed that understanding the aliens' methods could prevent future conflicts, and maybe even help humanity grow stronger. Her research took her to cities around the globe, where she collaborated with scientists and engineers eager to learn. Though progress was slow, every discovery brought new possibilities. Colonel Ryan Hayes, once so eager to fight, found himself reflecting on the cost of victory. He walked through the ruins of Chicago, his boots crunching over shattered glass and twisted metal. The city had been a battleground, and its scars reminded him of how much had been lost. Yet amidst the destruction, he saw signs of hope: families rebuilding homes, volunteers clearing debris, and children playing in the streets. Humanity hadn't just survived, it had begun to heal. Maria Lopez continued her work as a healer, tending to both physical wounds and emotional ones. She traveled from town to town, offering care and comfort wherever it was needed. Her gentle hands and kind words became a source of strength for many. "We're alive," she often said, "and that means there's still a chance to make things better." Sam Dawson focused on reconstruction, using his mechanical skills to repair tools, vehicles, and machinery. He taught others how to build and maintain simple devices, ensuring communities could become self-sufficient. "We don't need fancy gadgets to survive," he told anyone who would listen. "All we need is determination, and each other." Lily. Monroe watched her father closely in the weeks following the war. Jack had always been strong, but she noticed a change in him now. He smiled more often, laughed louder, and seemed lighter somehow. The weight of fear had lifted, replaced by a quiet confidence. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, she asked him about it. "What are you thinking about, Dad?" Jack tilted his head back, gazing at the night sky. "How far we've come," he replied. "Before all this, I thought we were just farmers, ordinary people living ordinary lives. But now I realize we're capable of so much more. We may not have lasers or spaceships, but we've got something better. Heart." Lily nodded, her young face thoughtful. "That's why we won, isn't it? Because we didn't give up?" "That's right," Jack said, ruffling her hair affectionately. "Because we didn't break." As months passed, humanity began to dream again. Artists painted murals on crumbling walls, telling stories of courage and resilience. Musicians played songs in crowded squares, their melodies lifting spirits and uniting strangers. Writers documented the war, preserving its lessons for future generations. Slowly but surely, the world started to heal. President Carter issued a global declaration, calling for unity and cooperation. "We've been tested like never before," he said in a speech broadcast across the globe. "But we've shown the universe what it means to be human. Let us honor those who sacrificed everything by building a world worthy of their bravery." Communities came together to create a brighter future. Renewable energy projects sprang up in areas devastated by alien attacks, harnessing wind, water, and sunlight to power homes and businesses. Education programs emphasized peace, collaboration, and innovation, teaching children to value creativity over conquest. Governments worked to dismantle old systems of greed and inequality, replacing them with structures designed to uplift everyone. Dr. Ross remained optimistic about humanity's potential. She believed the war had been a turning point, not just for Earth, but for the galaxy. "If we can learn from this experience," she told Jack one evening, "we might find a way to coexist with other species. Maybe someday we'll even reach out to them, not as enemies, but as equals." Jack smiled, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "That's a long way off, Doctor, but I suppose anything's possible." Lily chimed in, her voice full of conviction. I think we should try. If we can survive the Krylos, we can do anything. Her words stayed with Jack long after the conversation ended. She was right. Humanity had weathered the storm, emerging battered but unbroken. The road ahead would be challenging, but it also held endless possibilities. Together, they could build a world defined not by fear but by hope. On a clear morning, Jack stood in his field, looking out over rows of crops swaying gently in the breeze. The land bore scars from the war, but it was alive, just like the people who tended it. Beside him, Lily held a handful of seeds, ready to plant the next generation of growth. "We'll keep going," Jack said quietly, almost to himself. "No matter what happens, we'll keep going." And as the sun rose higher in the sky, casting light over a planet forever changed, humanity took its first steps toward a new dawn, one built on resilience, unity, and the unshakable belief that no matter how dark the night, the morning would always come. Part 6. The victory in Denver sent shockwaves across the globe. For the first time, humanity had proven that the Krylos weren't invincible. The aliens' advanced technology was powerful, yes, but it wasn't endless. Every weapon they fired drained their energy reserves, and every battle stretched their resources thinner. This knowledge gave people courage, a spark of hope in a world that had been drowning in fear. Resistance groups around the world began to unite, sharing strategies and coordinating attacks on a scale never seen before. Messages written by hand or spoken aloud traveled from town to town, spreading the lessons learned in Denver. "Hit hard, scatter fast, and make them chase you," became the rallying cry of the movement. Humanity's greatest strength lay not in its weapons, but in its adaptability and sheer determination. In Willow Creek, Jack, Lily, Sam, Maria, and Dr. Ross worked tirelessly to support the growing resistance. They turned the barn into a hub of activity, organizing supply runs, planning missions, and training new recruits. Each day brought fresh challenges, but also new opportunities to strike back against the Krylos. Dr. Ross continued studying the sphere, piecing together more of its secrets. She discovered that the sphere acted as a kind of relay station, transmitting data between the Krylos fleet and their command center, wherever that might be. If the sphere could be disabled, it might disrupt the aliens' ability to coordinate their attacks. But destroying it carried enormous risks. What if the Krylos retaliated with overwhelming force? What if disabling the sphere triggered some kind of self-destruct mechanism? "We need to act carefully," Dr. Ross warned during one of their meetings. "If we destroy the sphere too soon, or for the wrong reasons, we could make things worse." Colonel Hayes, who had joined forces with the group after witnessing their successes, disagreed. "Careful won't win this war, Doctor. We need to hit them where it hurts, now." Sam stepped in to mediate. "Both of you have valid points, but right now we can't afford to split our focus. Let's keep gathering intelligence and wait for the perfect moment to act." The decision was made to hold off on destroying the sphere for now. Instead, the group focused on exploiting the Krylos' weaknesses. Using tactics honed in Denver, they launched a series of coordinated assaults designed to stretch the aliens thin. Small teams struck at night, targeting vulnerable spots like drone nests and communication arrays. By the time the Krylos responded, the humans were already gone, leaving behind only confusion and chaos. Lily played a crucial role in these operations. Her sharp mind noticed patterns others missed, and her creativity led to innovative strategies. One evening, while sketching maps of nearby areas, she pointed to an old quarry surrounded by dense woods. "What if we lure them here?" she suggested. "It's isolated, so no one will get hurt, and we can set traps to slow them down." Her idea worked brilliantly. When the Krylos arrived at the quarry, expecting a large-scale ambush, they found themselves caught in a maze of pitfalls and tripwires. The resistance fighters attacked from hidden positions, forcing the aliens to expend precious energy trying to escape. By the time the Krylos regrouped, their weapons were sputtering, their movements sluggish. Each victory, no matter how small, fueled humanity's resolve. People who had once felt powerless now believed they could fight back. In cities and towns, Across the globe, ordinary men and women rose up to defend their homes. Farmers used pitchforks and axes to fend off drones. Teachers turned classrooms into safe houses, sheltering survivors and teaching children how to survive. Even the elderly contributed, offering wisdom and guidance born from decades of experience. But the Krylos weren't idle either. As humanity grew bolder, the aliens adapted. They deployed new types of weapons, deadly beams of light that cut through solid rock and sound waves that shattered glass and disoriented anyone caught in their path. Entire neighborhoods were wiped out in seconds, reduced to rubble and ash. Yet despite the destruction, the resistance refused to give up. One particularly brutal attack came in Chicago, where Sam and Maria had helped establish an underground network of tunnels. The Krylos descended on the city without warning, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts that collapsed buildings and ignited fires. Hundreds of people were trapped beneath the wreckage, their cries echoing through the ruins. Maria sprang into action, leading rescue teams through the debris to pull survivors to safety. Her calm demeanor and steady hands kept everyone focused, even as the ground shook beneath their feet. "Keep moving," she shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We're not leaving anyone behind." Sam coordinated efforts above ground, directing fighters to distract the Krylos and draw their attention away from the rescue operation. "Hold the line," he yelled, gripping a crowbar tightly. "Give Maria and the others time to work." Jack and Lily joined the fight, using their skills to fend off Krylos drones. Jack wielded a sledgehammer with surprising precision, while Lily darted between enemies, setting traps and creating diversions. Together they inspired those around them to keep pushing, even when the odds seemed impossible. By the time the Krylos withdrew, exhausted and low on energy, the human toll was devastating. Dozens of people had died, and hundreds more were injured. But the survivors refused to mourn just yet. Instead, they buried their dead, tended to the wounded, and prepared to fight again, because that's what humanity did. It endured. Back in Willow Creek, Dr. Ross analyzed data collected during the Chicago attack. She confirmed her earlier findings. The Krylos weapons relied heavily on energy reserves, which depleted faster during prolonged engagements. "This is our chance," she told the group. "If we can force them into extended battles, we can wear them down." The group agreed to intensify their efforts, launching larger, more ambitious attacks. They targeted key locations like alien supply depots and landing zones, striking quickly and retreating before the Krylos could counterattack. Each mission pushed the aliens closer to their breaking point, forcing them to expend more energy than they could afford. As the weeks passed, the Krylos began to falter. Their attacks grew less frequent, their movements slower and less precise. It was as if they couldn't comprehend why their technologically inferior opponents refused to surrender. To them, humanity's persistence was illogical, a flaw in their calculations they hadn't anticipated. But to Jack, Lily, and the rest of the resistance, it was proof of something greater. Humanity wasn't defined by its weapons or its gadgets. It was defined by its spirit, the unyielding will to survive, to protect, and to endure, and no amount of alien firepower could extinguish that flame. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack stood outside the barn with Lily by his side. Above them, the alien ship still loomed, casting long shadows over the land. But, for the first time, they didn't feel like omens of doom. Instead, they felt like challenges, obstacles to overcome. "You know, Lil," Jack said softly, gazing up at the sky, "we might not have fancy ships or lasers, but we've got something they don't." "What's that?" Lily asked, leaning against him. "Hearts," Jack replied with a smile, "and hearts don't break easily." Lily grinned, her eyes shining with determination. "Then we'll keep fighting because that's what we do." And so, humanity pressed on, united, resilient, and unbreakable. The war was far from over, but for the first time there was hope. Hope that together they could reclaim their world. Part 5. The resistance in Willow Creek had grown stronger, but so had the Krylos. Every victory came at a cost, and every loss reminded humanity of how fragile their defiance truly was. The alien ships still hovered above Earth's cities, silent sentinels watching over a planet they deemed unworthy. Yet beneath their cold gaze, humans continued to adapt, innovate, and survive. Dr. Emily Ross spent countless hours studying the sphere, piecing together its secrets bit by bit. Her earlier observations about the Krylos's weapons targeting only machines had proven correct, but now she uncovered something even more critical. The aliens' technology required immense amounts of energy to function. Each attack drained their resources, leaving them temporarily weakened if they pushed too hard or for too long. This realization sparked a new strategy. "Listen," Dr. Ross said during one of the group's meetings inside the barn. "Their weapons are powerful, yes, but they're not limitless. If we can force them into prolonged engagements, keep them fighting without letting them recharge, we might wear them down." Sam Dawson nodded thoughtfully, scratching his chin. "Makes sense, but how do we pull that off? They've got ships, drones, and who knows what else. We're just us." "We use what we've got," Maria Lopez chimed in, her voice steady. "We hit them fast, scatter before they can counterattack, then hit again somewhere else. Keep them guessing. Keep them moving." Jack Monroe, sitting quietly in the corner with Lily beside him, finally spoke up. "It's risky, but it could work. We've seen it before. When we stay unpredictable, they struggle to keep up." The group agreed to put the plan into action. Over the next few days, they organized a series of coordinated strikes across different locations. Small teams moved quickly, striking key targets like supply depots, drone nests, and communication arrays. Each attack was designed to provoke a response from the Krylos, forcing them to expend energy chasing shadows. Lily played an important role in the planning phase. Her sharp mind noticed details others overlooked, and her creativity led to innovative tactics. For example, she suggested using mirrors to reflect sunlight at specific angles, creating false signals that lured Krylos drones away from real threats. "If they think we're somewhere we're not," she explained, "they'll waste time and energy looking for us." Her ideas worked better than anyone expected. The Krylos, accustomed to overwhelming their opponents with brute force, found themselves struggling to adapt to humanity's guerrilla warfare. Their advanced technology gave them an edge, but it also made them predictable. Humans, on the other hand, relied on instinct, teamwork, and sheer determination, qualities the aliens couldn't anticipate. Word of these successes spread quickly, inspiring other resistance groups around the world. In Denver, a coalition of survivors decided to take a stand. They fortified the city's ruins, turning crumbling buildings into defensive strongholds. When a Krylos landing party descended to investigate, the humans were ready. The battle for Denver became a turning point in humanity's fight. Thousands of people converged on the city, armed with nothing more than hammers, knives, and makeshift shields. Civilians worked together, forming barricades and setting traps to slow the aliens' advance. Though many fell during the initial assault, the resistance refused to yield. Maria Lopez led medical teams through the chaos, tending to the wounded while urging fighters to hold their ground. "Stay strong," she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "We can do this." Sam Dawson coordinated attacks from the front lines, directing teams to strike where the Krylos were weakest. He knew timing was crucial. If they could keep the aliens engaged long enough, their weapons would falter. "Keep pushing," he yelled, his voice hoarse but determined. "Don't let up." Jack and Lily fought side by side, their bond giving them strength. Jack used his farming tools as weapons, wielding a pitchfork with surprising skill. Lily stayed close, using her quick reflexes to dodge enemy fire and provide support wherever needed. Together, they inspired those around them to keep going, even when hope seemed lost. As the hours dragged on, the Krylos began to show signs of strain. Their weapons grew less effective, their movements slower and less precise. For the first time, humanity saw cracks in the aliens' seemingly invincible facade. The resistance pressed harder, refusing to give the Krylos a moment to recover. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the aliens retreated. Their ships rose into the sky, leaving behind scorched earth and shattered machinery. The humans cheered, their voices echoing through the ruined streets. Though the cost had been high, they had won, a victory not just for Denver, but for all of humanity. News of the triumph spread rapidly, reigniting hope in communities everywhere. People who had once felt powerless now believed they could make a difference. Resistance groups redoubled their efforts, launching bolder attacks and coordinating on a larger scale. The Krylos, once confident in their superiority, began to realize they had underestimated their foes. Back in Willow Creek, Dr. Ross analyzed data collected during the battle. She confirmed her earlier hypothesis. The Krylos' weapons relied heavily on energy reserves, which depleted faster during sustained conflict. This changes everything, she told the group. If we can exploit this weakness consistently, we might actually have a chance. Colonel Hayes, who had initially dismissed her theories, finally acknowledged her contributions. You were right, Doctor, he admitted grudgingly. Your insights saved lives today. What's next? Dr. Ross hesitated, choosing her words carefully. Next, we need to share this information with everyone. Humanity is scattered, divided, but united we're unstoppable. If we can coordinate our efforts globally, we might be able to turn the tide. The group agreed to spread the word, sending messengers to nearby settlements and broadcasting messages via whatever means were available. Letters, drawings, and oral accounts carried the lessons of Denver far and wide. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't built to break. Every setback was a lesson, every failure a stepping stone toward victory. As the days passed, the Krylos' frustration became evident. Their attacks grew more desperate, their movements erratic. It was as if they couldn't comprehend why their technologically inferior opponents refused to surrender. To them, humanity's persistence was illogical, a flaw in their calculations they hadn't anticipated. But to Jack, Lily, and the rest of the resistance, it was proof of something greater. Humanity wasn't defined by its weapons or its gadgets. It was defined by its spirit, the unyielding will to survive, to protect, and to endure, and no amount of alien firepower could extinguish that flame. One evening, as the sun set over the horizon, Jack stood outside the barn with Lily by his side. The air smelled of smoke and ash, remnants of battles fought and won. Above them, the alien ship still loomed, casting long shadows over the land. But for the first time, they didn't feel like omens of doom. Instead, they felt like challenges, obstacles to overcome. You know, Lil, Jack said softly, gazing up at the sky. We might not have fancy ships or lasers, but we've got something they don't. What's that? Lily asked, leaning against him. Hearts, Jack replied with a smile. And hearts don't break easily. Lily grinned, her eyes shining with determination. Then we'll keep fighting, because that's what we do. And so humanity pressed on, united, resilient, and unbreakable. The war was far from over, but for the first time there was hope. Hope that together they could reclaim their world. Part 4. The victory in Willow Creek was short-lived. News of the Resistance's success spread quickly, carried by word of mouth and handwritten notes passed between communities. People were inspired, their spirits lifted by the idea that humanity could fight back, even against an enemy as powerful as the Krylos. But the celebration didn't last long. Everyone knew the aliens wouldn't ignore such defiance for long. In the days following the attack on the alien ship, the Krylos began to adapt. Their initial shock at humanity's resistance gave way to calculated aggression. They started targeting areas where human activity was concentrated, using their advanced weapons to dismantle entire towns. Buildings crumbled into dust, roads cracked under the force of energy blasts, and anything mechanical, cars, generators, even wind turbines, was reduced to useless scrap. Yet just as Dr. Ross had observed, the Krylos' attacks left living beings untouched unless they stood directly in the path of destruction. This pattern gave humanity a glimmer of hope. If the Krylos couldn't harm biological matter directly, Then humans had a chance to survive, but only if they stayed smart. Across the globe, pockets of resistance formed, each group learning from the other's successes and failures. In Willow Creek, Jack, Lily, Sam, Maria, and the rest of their team became symbols of resilience. Their small victory had sparked something bigger, a global movement of people determined to protect their homes no matter the odds. Sam Dawson spent most of his time strategizing with other leaders. He set up a network of messengers to share information about Krylos movements and coordinate attacks. "We can't let them catch us off guard," he told the group during one meeting. "If we hit them fast and hard, then scatter before they retaliate, we might stand a chance." Maria Lopez focused on keeping people alive. With medical supplies running low, she taught anyone willing to learn basic first aid techniques. She also organized scavenging missions to nearby abandoned towns, searching for medicine, food, and anything else that could help sustain the community. "We're not just fighting for today," she reminded everyone. "We're fighting for tomorrow." Jack and Lily threw themselves into the effort too. Jack trained new recruits in combat, showing them how to use improvised weapons effectively. Lily, despite her young age, proved invaluable. Her sharp eyes noticed details others missed, and her quick thinking often saved the group from danger. One evening, while helping Sam map out potential ambush points, she pointed to a cluster of trees surrounding an old highway. "What if we hide there?" she suggested. "They won't expect it, and we can trap them when they pass through." Her idea turned out to be brilliant. The next day, the resistance used the location to launch another successful attack, forcing a Krylos patrol to retreat after sustaining heavy damage to their equipment. Though the aliens themselves remained unharmed, their reliance on technology made them vulnerable. Every time the resistance struck, they grew more confident and more creative. Dr. Emily Ross continued studying the sphere, hoping to unlock its secrets. She believed it held the key to understanding the Krylos' intentions, or at least finding a way to disable their weapons. Late at night, she sat by candlelight, scribbling notes and sketching diagrams based on her observations. Though progress was slow, she began noticing patterns in the sphere's energy fluctuations. It pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat, syncing with the movements of the alien ships overhead. One night, as she monitored the sphere, she detected something unusual, a brief spike in energy followed by a sudden drop. Moments later, reports came in that a Krylos ship several miles away had temporarily lost power before regaining control. The connection was undeniable. The sphere wasn't just a relic, it was actively communicating with the fleet. "This changes everything," Dr. Ross whispered to herself, her heart racing. If the sphere controlled or at least influenced the Krylos operations, destroying it could cripple their efforts. But doing so carried enormous risks. What if disabling the sphere triggered a catastrophic response? What if it alerted the Krylos to humanity's intentions? She shared her findings with the group the next morning. "We need to be careful," she warned. "If we destroy the sphere, we might weaken them. But we could also provoke them into retaliating in ways we can't predict." Colonel Hayes, who had been watching from the sidelines, finally spoke up. "Then we don't wait," he said firmly. "We strike now, while we have the advantage." "No," Dr. Ross countered. "We need to plan this carefully. Rushing in blind will get us killed." The debate raged on, but ultimately the decision was made to proceed cautiously. For now, the resistance would continue focusing on small-scale attacks, testing the limits of the Krylos' patience while gathering more intelligence. As the weeks passed, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. Stories of bravery and ingenuity spread far and wide. In Chicago, survivors banded together to create underground shelters lit by candles and powered by manual labor. In Los Angeles, a group of engineers rigged up water pumps using bicycle parts and gravity-fed systems. Even in remote villages halfway across the world, ordinary people found extraordinary ways to adapt. But the Krylos weren't idle either. They began deploying drones, small insect-like machines that scoured the landscape for signs of human activity. These drones were relentless, scanning every inch of terrain and reporting back to their motherships. When they detected a settlement, the Krylos responded swiftly, obliterating it without mercy. Despite the constant threat, humanity refused to give up. Resistance fighters learned to camouflage themselves, blending into their surroundings to avoid detection. They dug tunnels beneath cities, creating hidden networks of safe houses and supply routes. And they fought, not with guns or missiles, but with whatever tools they could fashion from scraps and debris. Through it all, Jack and Lily remained at the heart of the resistance. Jack's leadership inspired others to keep going, even when hope felt distant. Lily's optimism kept morale high, reminding everyone why they were fighting in the first place. Together, they became a symbol of humanity's indomitable spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest times, people could find strength in unity. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jack stood outside the barn with Lily by his side. The sky was filled with stars, but the alien ships loomed above them, casting long shadows over the land. "Do you think we'll win, Dad?" Lily asked softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Jack looked down at her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "I don't know, Lil, but I do know one thing. We're not giving up. As long as we keep fighting, there's always a chance." Lily nodded, her expression resolute. "Then we'll win, because we're not built to break." Her words echoed in Jack's mind long after they returned inside. She was right. Humanity wasn't perfect, it never had been, but it was resilient. No matter how many times it fell, it always found a way to rise again. And maybe, just maybe, that stubborn refusal to surrender would be enough to save them all. Part 1. The sun was setting over the small Midwest town of Willow Creek, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The air smelled of freshly cut grass, and the only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the distant hum of a tractor, winding down for the day. It was an ordinary evening in an ordinary place where nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. But that was about to change. Jack Monroe wiped the sweat from his brow as he climbed down from his old red tractor. He had spent most of the afternoon plowing his fields, preparing the soil for next season's crops. His daughter Lily sat nearby on the tailgate of their pickup truck, swinging her legs back and forth while she flipped through the pages of a worn-out science fiction novel. She loved stories about aliens and spaceships, though Jack always teased her about how unlikely it was for any of those things to be real. "Dad," Lily said suddenly, snapping the book shut, "what if aliens really did come to Earth? What would we do?" Jack chuckled, leaning against the tractor. "Well, kiddo, I reckon we just have to show 'em some good old Midwestern hospitality." He grinned at her, but his smile faded when he noticed something strange in the sky. A bright streak of light shot across the horizon, moving faster than anything Jack had ever seen. It wasn't like a shooting star. It was too big, too close. Before he could say a word, the object veered sharply and crashed into one of his faraway fields with a deafening boom. The ground shook beneath their feet, sending a flock of birds scattering into the twilight. Lily jumped off the tailgate, her eyes wide with excitement. "Did you see that? Dad, what if it's an alien spaceship?" "Let's go check it out," Jack replied, grabbing a flashlight from the truck. Part of him wanted to laugh at the absurdity of Lily's suggestion, but another part felt uneasy. Whatever had fallen from the sky, it wasn't normal. They drove toward the crash site in silence, the headlights bouncing along the uneven dirt road. When they reached the edge of the field, they saw it. A strange, metallic sphere embedded in the earth. It glowed faintly, pulsing with an eerie blue light. Up close, it looked less like a rock or a meteor and more like, well, something unnatural. "What is it?" Lily whispered, gripping the edge of her jacket tightly. "I don't know," Jack admitted, stepping cautiously closer. He knelt down and touched the surface of the sphere. It felt cold, almost icy, despite the warmth of the evening. As soon as his fingers brushed against it, the sphere reacted. A burst of blinding light erupted, knocking both Jack and Lily backward onto the ground. For a moment, everything went silent. Then slowly, Jack sat up, blinking away spots from his vision. "Are you okay?" he asked, turning to Lily. She nodded, though her face was pale. "I think so. What just happened?" Before Jack could answer, the sphere began to hum louder, vibrating slightly. It didn't seem hostile, but there was no denying it was alive in some way. Jack helped Lily to her feet and took a step back, unsure of what to do next. By morning, news of the mysterious object had spread throughout Willow Creek. People gathered near the field, whispering among themselves about what it might be. Some thought it was a satellite. Others speculated it could be a military experiment gone wrong. But deep down, everyone knew it was something extraordinary. Among the crowd was Dr. Emily Ross, a scientist who had been called in by federal authorities to investigate. She pushed her glasses up the bridge of her nose as she examined the sphere, her expression serious. "This isn't man-made," she said quietly to herself. "It's not even from this planet." Colonel Ryan Hayes stood nearby, arms crossed and jaw clenched. He was a tall man with sharp features and an authoritative demeanor. Unlike Dr. Ross, who approached the situation with caution, Hayes was eager to take control. "We need to get this thing open," he barked at his team. "Find out what's inside." Dr. Ross turned to him, frowning. "That's not a good idea. We don't know what kind of technology this is or what it's capable of. Rushing in could make things worse." Hayes ignored her, waving his hand dismissively. "Worse? How much worse can it get?" "Something fell out of the sky last night, Doctor. If it's dangerous, we need to neutralize it before it causes any real damage." Reluctantly, Dr. Ross stepped aside as the soldiers set up equipment around the sphere. They drilled into its surface, trying to pry it open, but nothing worked. Frustrated, Hayes ordered them to use a laser cutter. The moment the beam touched the sphere, it reacted violently. A pulse of energy surged outward, disabling every piece of machinery within miles, including the trucks, phones, and cameras brought by reporters covering the event. Panic rippled through the crowd as people realized they were completely cut off from the outside world. Cars wouldn't start, cell phones were dead, and even watches stopped ticking. In the chaos, Jack pulled Lily close, shielding her from the frightened mob. "Stay with me," he murmured, scanning the area for a safe place to retreat. Dr. Ross watched the scene unfold with growing dread. This wasn't just a random occurrence, it was a warning. Whoever or whatever had sent the sphere clearly didn't want humans meddling with their technology. And if this was only the beginning, humanity was in for a fight unlike anything it had faced before. As night fell once again, the sphere remained intact, glowing softly under the stars. No one dared approach it anymore, but its presence loomed large over Willow Creek. For now, it was silent, but everyone knew it wouldn't stay that way for long. Part 2. The next morning, the people of Willow Creek woke up to a sky that felt different. It wasn't just the eerie silence left behind by the disabled technology, it was the weight in the air, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The metallic sphere still sat in Jack's field, glowing faintly under the sunlight. But now it seemed less like an isolated mystery and more like the beginning of something much bigger. Dr. Emily Ross had barely slept. She spent the night pacing her makeshift tent, jotting down notes and trying to make sense of what had happened. Her mind raced with questions. Who sent the sphere? What did it want? And why had it reacted so violently when humans tried to tamper with it? One thing was clear, the sphere wasn't just a random object. It was a message, a warning, or perhaps even a test. But from whom? Colonel Ryan Hayes, on the other hand, hadn't stopped moving. He barked orders at his soldiers, setting up checkpoints around the crash site and patrolling the town's borders. His focus wasn't on understanding the sphere, it was on controlling the situation. To him, the sphere was a threat, plain and simple, and threats needed to be dealt with decisively. "We're not waiting around for whatever this thing is planning," he growled during a tense meeting with Dr. Ross. "If it's hostile, we need to strike first." Dr. Ross clenched her fists, struggling to keep her voice calm. "Colonel, we don't even know what it is yet. Rushing into action without understanding the risks could make things worse. We can't afford to escalate blindly." Hayes shot her a sharp look. "And we can't afford to sit here doing nothing while God knows what happens next. If you won't help us figure out how to deal with this thing, then step aside." Before their argument could escalate further, a sudden commotion erupted outside. People began pointing toward the sky, their faces pale with fear. Dr. Ross and Hayes stepped out of the tent to see what everyone was staring at, and froze. Hovering above the horizon were massive shapes, dark against the blue sky. They weren't birds or planes. They were ships, enormous and alien, their surfaces shimmering like liquid metal. There were dozens of them, each one casting a shadow over the land below as they moved silently across the sky. Within moments, the ships descended, positioning themselves above major cities around the globe. A loud, resonant voice echoed through the air, vibrating in everyone's chests. It wasn't coming from speakers or radios, it was everywhere, impossible to ignore. "Humans of Earth," the voice said, deep and emotionless. "You have been judged unworthy of sharing this galaxy. Your violence, greed, and instability threaten the balance of all life. Surrender your weapons, or face annihilation." The words hung in the air long after the voice faded. For a moment, no one spoke. Then panic broke out. People screamed, ran, or dropped to their knees in prayer. Some shouted accusations at the sky, demanding answers, while others clung to loved ones, tears streaming down their faces. In Willow Creek, the crowd around the sphere scattered, leaving only Dr. Ross, Colonel Hayes, and a handful of soldiers standing near the glowing artifact. Lily tugged at Jack's sleeve, her eyes wide. "Dad, are those aliens?" Jack didn't answer. He couldn't. His throat felt tight, his chest heavy with dread. Whatever was happening, it was beyond anything he'd ever imagined. He glanced at Dr. Ross, hoping she might have some kind of explanation, but she looked just as shaken as everyone else. Colonel Hayes, however, seemed oddly energized. He straightened his posture, his jaw set firmly. "This is it," he muttered, almost to himself. "This is why we train. This is why we prepare." Turning to his men, he raised his voice. "Listen up. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. We've faced enemies before and we'll face them again. We're not surrendering to anyone." Dr. Ross stepped forward, her voice firm despite the fear in her eyes. "Colonel, think about what you're saying. These beings are clearly far more advanced than we are. Their ships alone prove that. If we provoke them, we could be signing our own death warrant. And if we roll over and play dead, we'll lose everything anyway." Hayes snapped back. "I'm not letting humanity bow to some extraterrestrial dictatorship, not on my watch." As the argument between Hayes and Ross continued, news began, pouring in from other parts of the world. The alien ships, referred to as the Krylos in their broadcast, had already started demonstrating their power. In New York City, tanks melted into slag before they could fire a single shot. In London, fighter jets exploded mid-air without warning. In Tokyo, missiles detonated harmlessly before reaching their targets. The Krylos weapons were unlike anything humanity had ever encountered, rendering Earth's military might useless. Back in Willow Creek, the tension was palpable. People huddled together in groups, whispering anxiously about what would happen next. Some suggested fleeing into the countryside, away from the cities where the Krylos seemed most active. Others argued that running wouldn't help. If the aliens wanted to destroy them, there was nowhere to hide. Jack found himself torn. On one hand, he wanted to protect Lily and get her as far away from danger as possible. On the other hand, he couldn't shake the feeling that staying put might give them a better chance of surviving. After all, the sphere, the very thing that had brought the Krylos to their attention, was still right there in his field. Maybe it held answers, or maybe it was bait. Either way, it felt important. Lily noticed her father's hesitation and placed a reassuring hand on his arm. "Dad, we'll be okay, we always are." Her words surprised him. Despite everything, she sounded confident, almost hopeful. It made him realize how much stronger she was than he sometimes gave her credit for. "You're right, kiddo," he said softly. "We'll figure this out. Together." Meanwhile, Dr. Ross was working tirelessly to analyze the sphere, hoping to uncover any clues about the Krylos' intentions. Using basic tools and her own ingenuity, she managed to detect faint energy readings emanating from its surface. Though she couldn't fully understand them, one pattern stood out. The sphere's energy spikes coincided with moments of heightened activity from the alien ships. It was as if the sphere was communicating with the fleet, relaying information, or perhaps instructions. Colonel Hayes, frustrated by the lack of progress, decided to take matters into his own hands. He ordered his team to set up defensive positions around Willow Creek, arming themselves with whatever weapons still functioned. "If they come here, we'll be ready," he declared, though his confidence rang hollow to those who knew the truth. Without functioning technology, humanity's chances of fighting back were slim at best. As night fell once again, the alien ships remained suspended in the sky, silent and unmoving. No attacks came, but the sense of impending doom lingered. People gathered in homes and community centers, lighting candles and sharing stories to distract themselves from the fear gnawing at their hearts. In the quiet moments, Jack thought about what the Krylos had said, that humanity was too violent, too unstable to share the galaxy. He wondered if they were right. Humans had fought wars, destroyed ecosystems, and exploited one another for centuries. Was this really the end of the line? Or was there still hope for redemption? Lily interrupted his thoughts, handing him a cup of tea she'd brewed over a small fire. "Dad, do you think they'll leave if we show them we're not bad?" Jack smiled faintly, touched by her optimism. "Maybe, Lil. Maybe." Unbeknownst to them, the Krylos were watching, not just Willow Creek, but the entire planet. Their judgment wasn't final yet. Humanity had been given a choice: surrender or resist. And though the odds seemed insurmountable, resistance was exactly what many humans planned to do. Little did anyone know, the true test of humanity's strength was only just beginning. Part 3. The days that followed felt like a strange mix of chaos and stillness. The alien ships, the Krylos, hovered silently above Earth's cities, their presence looming over humanity like an unshakable storm cloud. People waited for something to happen. Another attack, another message, anything. But the Krylos remained eerily quiet. It was as if they were watching, studying, waiting to see what humans would do next. In Willow Creek, life had changed completely. The town, once peaceful and predictable, now buzzed with tension. Families who had lived there for generations were packing up their belongings, unsure whether to stay or flee. Others, too stubborn or too scared to leave, stayed behind, fortifying their homes with whatever they could find. Old wooden fences became makeshift barricades, and kitchen knives were sharpened into crude weapons. No one knew what to expect, but everyone agreed on one thing: humanity couldn't just give up. Jack and Lily Monroe tried to keep busy. They spent their days helping neighbors secure their properties and sharing food from Jack's farm. Though the farm equipment no longer worked, the crops in the fields were still growing, providing much-needed supplies for the community. Jack didn't talk about it, but he found comfort in the routine. It reminded him of simpler times before the sky had filled with alien ships and glowing spheres. Lily, however, couldn't stop thinking about the Krylos. She pestered her father with questions every chance she got. "Why are they here? What do they want from us? Do you think they'll let us stay?" Jack always gave her the same answer: "I don't know, Lil, but we'll figure it out." Dr. Emily Ross, meanwhile, had become the center of attention in Willow Creek. Her knowledge and calm demeanor made her a source of hope for many. She worked tirelessly to understand the sphere, setting up basic experiments using whatever tools were available. Though she hadn't cracked its secrets yet, she noticed something important. The Krylos's attacks only targeted machines and technology. Human bodies so far had been left untouched unless someone directly obstructed their path. This observation sparked a theory. One evening, as she sat by candlelight in her tent, she whispered her thoughts aloud to herself. "If their weapons are designed to dismantle artificial constructs, maybe they can't harm us directly. Maybe we're not as defenseless as we think." She shared her idea with Colonel Ryan Hayes the next morning, hoping it might change his aggressive approach. "Colonel," she began cautiously, "what if we focus on low-tech solutions? If their weapons can't affect biological matter, then relying on primitive tools might give us an edge." Hayes listened but shook his head. "Primitive tools won't stop a fleet of alien ships, Doctor. We need firepower, strategy, something that actually works." Despite his skepticism, Dr. Ross decided to spread her theory among the townspeople. Word traveled quickly, and soon people began brainstorming ways to fight back without depending on technology. Farmers repurposed farming tools into weapons, while carpenters built sturdy shields from wood and metal scraps. Even children contributed, gathering rocks and sharpening sticks. Among those leading the charge was Sam Dawson, a former mechanic with a knack for problem-solving. Before the invasion, he'd spent most of his days fixing cars and tinkering with engines. Now, he was putting his skills to use crafting traps and defensive mechanisms. With the help of Maria Lopez, a nurse who had taken charge of organizing medical supplies, they turned an abandoned barn into a makeshift command center. Maria approached Jack one afternoon, asking if he and Lily would join their efforts. "We need all the help we can get," she said earnestly. "People look up to you, Jack. You and Lily survived that first encounter with the sphere. That means something." Jack hesitated. He wasn't sure he wanted to play hero, but he also knew he couldn't sit idly by while others risked their lives. Finally, he nodded. "All right, count us in." As the days passed, rumors of resistance began spreading beyond Willow Creek. In other parts of the world, similar groups were forming, ordinary people banding together to protect their homes. Without functioning technology, humanity was forced to rely on creativity, teamwork, and sheer determination. Guerrilla tactics became the norm, with small teams launching surprise attacks against isolated Krylos units. The Krylos responded with brutal efficiency. Whenever humans struck, the aliens retaliated with overwhelming force, obliterating entire neighborhoods in seconds. Yet despite the destruction, the resistance refused to back down. Every setback only fueled their resolve. They adapted quickly, learning to avoid direct confrontation and strike where the Krylos least expected it. One night, as Jack and Lily helped fortify the perimeter of the barn, Sam called everyone inside for a meeting. The air smelled of sawdust and smoke, and the flickering light of oil lamps cast long shadows on the walls. "Listen up," Sam said, his voice steady but urgent. "We've been hitting them hard, but we can't keep this up forever. Sooner or later, they'll realize we're organized. When that happens, they'll come after us full force." "What do you suggest?" Maria asked, folding her arms. "We hit them first," Sam replied. "Not randomly, though. We plan a coordinated attack, one big enough to make them think twice about messing with us." The room fell silent as everyone processed his words. It was a risky plan, but no one could deny it was bold. After a moment, Jack spoke up. "How do we even begin to plan something like that?" "That's why we're here," Sam said, gesturing to the group. "We pool our ideas, our resources, and our courage. Together, we can pull this off." Over the next few days, the resistance worked tirelessly to prepare. Scouts mapped out areas where Krylos activity was minimal, identifying potential targets. Others gathered materials to build decoys and distractions. Lily surprised everyone by suggesting they use mirrors to reflect sunlight at the alien ships. "It might blind them," she explained shyly. "Or at least confuse them." Her idea earned nods of approval, and soon dozens of mirrors were collected and polished. Meanwhile, Jack took charge of training volunteers in hand-to-hand combat, teaching them how to wield improvised weapons effectively. Though none of them were soldiers, their determination made up for their lack of experience. Dr. Ross kept a close eye on the sphere, monitoring its energy readings for any changes. She suspected it might serve as a communication link between the Krylos and their fleet, which meant disabling it could disrupt their operations. However, she warned the group not to act rash much. "If we try to destroy it prematurely, we might trigger something worse," she cautioned. "Timing is everything." Finally, the day of the planned attack arrived. The resistance gathered at dawn, their faces streaked with dirt and determination. Armed with hammers, pitchforks, and sharpened sticks, they looked more like farmers preparing for harvest than warriors heading into battle. But their spirits were high, buoyed by the belief that they were fighting for something greater than themselves. As the sun rose higher in the sky, Sam gave the signal. The resistance moved swiftly, splitting into small teams to carry out their assigned tasks. Some set fire to piles of tires, creating thick clouds of smoke to obscure the Krylos' view. Others positioned mirrors strategically, angling them to catch the sunlight and direct it toward the nearest alien ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the ship began to shift, its surface rippling like water disturbed by a stone. A low hum filled the air, growing louder until it vibrated in everyone's bones. The Krylos were responding, but not with the devastating force everyone had feared. Instead, the ship emitted a series of bright flashes, temporarily blinding anyone nearby. Through the chaos, Jack spotted Lily crouching behind a pile of rubble, holding a mirror steady despite the noise and confusion. He ran to her, shielding her with his body. "Are you okay?" he shouted over the din. "I'm fine," she yelled back, her voice trembling but defiant. "Look, Dad, it's working." And she was right. The ship, overwhelmed by the unexpected assault, began to retreat, rising higher into the sky until it disappeared from view. Cheers erupted among the resistance fighters, their voices mingling with cries of relief and exhaustion. Though the victory was small, it proved something crucial. Humanity wasn't powerless. The Krylos might have superior technology, but they weren't invincible. And as long as people refused to give up, there was still hope. Back at the barn, Dr. Ross watched the celebrations with a mixture of pride and unease. She knew this was only the beginning. The Krylos wouldn't tolerate such defiance for long, but for now she allowed herself a rare smile. Humanity had shown its strength, and perhaps, just perhaps, it might be enough to turn the tide.